fill your thirst beside the river. Wash the journey from your hands. Feel the comfort flow inside.
Hi, welcome to Healing Outside the Box. This is our 150th show, no, 151st show.
That's right.
151.
151.
Oh my God. My name is Rosemary Lachance, and I'm an energy healer and a spiritual teacher.
And my name is Jimmy Driscoll. I'm an actor, producer, and writer.
And we are the co-hosts for this thought-provoking series and are dedicated to providing you with food for thought information and answers to all modalities of alternative healing, spiritual development, animal welfare, environmental concerns, and so much more in the form of guest speakers who are experts in their fields. To find out what shows are playing in your area and when they are playing, please contact the public service channel in your town. To find out their website, giving you their address and phone number, please check my website, where you will find a list of all the towns that that air this show under Healing Outside the Box, and we will give you my information at the end of the show. And also, if you like us on Facebook under Healing Outside the Box, where you can learn and see pictures of our past guests and ask questions or leave a comment. We hope you enjoy the show.
Our guest this evening is Joseph Bradley, an author of 4 novels. His stories are fast-paced thrillers and twists and turns, endings that will leave the reader mesmerized. Joe is a former police officer, firefighter, and has a master's degree in criminology. He's been training and teaching martial arts since 1973 and is a veteran of the United States Army. His works are a product of an exciting, adventurous, and sometimes dangerous life. His latest book, Bottle Park, is the subject of tonight's show. Please welcome Joseph Bradley.
Hi.
Joseph.
Nice to
Thank
have
you,
you
Rosemary.
here so much.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Okay, the first question we always ask is, how did you get started in what you do? So how did you get started writing?
Rosemary, I started writing approximately about 12 years ago. I was going through a pretty awful divorce, and I had a couple kids involved, so I had to put my mind to something creative. I had this story for the last season, my first novel, in my head, and I had a lot of time on my hands, and so at that point it was kind of a really a time of healing for me, because I took my mind off all my problems at the time, the divorce. And I sat down at the kitchen table in my apartment with my my computer, and I just started writing. And when I got up, the novel was done about 2.5 years later.
A long time at the kitchen table.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time at the kitchen table.
That's great. That's great. And it is healing, isn't it?
It is, and it really helped me get through the hard times. And it's a creative process that when you finish that last page and hit the end, it's a great feeling.
I'll bet you.
Even though that is really the beginning of still a longer process of going through the second draft and the third draft and sometimes the fourth draft before it's finished, right. Which can get tedious after a while. When you're done after that last draft. But
that's nice.
Well, we have 4 books in front of us that we'll discuss later on in the show. Here tonight because it's your newest book, your newest novel, Bottle Park, which we're going to discuss now. What brought on this idea of this book, actually, Joe?
Bottle Park, actually, my latest novel. It's actually fiction based on a true story. It's based on a story that happened in the city that I grew up in. When I was a 12-year-old boy, there was an altar boy about the same age as me who was murdered, and he was found bludgeoned to death. And his crime, the crime was never solved. But the prime suspect in the case was a priest. He was actually my Catholic priest, parish priest, before he had moved into that parish where the boy was murdered. So it was kind of a sad story in that A 12-year-old boy's murdered. The prime suspect is a priest. However, they never prosecuted. A lot of connection between the longtime district attorney and the bishop. And it kind of got swept under the rug, and some evidence was missing, and they could never prosecute it. They actually tried to reopen the case as a cold case approximately 10 years ago. Might have been 12 years ago. But they just couldn't put it together enough evidence to indict that particular priest, who has been defrocked, and they settled about 40 cases of child sexual abuse
With that priest?
against that priest. And there was, I think, 40 some odd lawsuits, which the church ended up settling out with millions of dollars.
So you wrote the book based on, it's fiction, the book, right?
Yes, all my books are novels, so they're fiction.
But they're not.
Well,
right?
this is the only book out of my 4 that's based on a true story.
Oh, okay.
But even though it's based on a true story, the characters are a little different.
Yeah.
You know, obviously the names are changed to protect the innocent. And there's also some other characters. It's a whodunit mystery. It's like a murder mystery. So it's you know, did the priest commit the murder, or was it 2 sociopath school friends of the victim? So there's a few different suspects, and until the end, you don't really find out who actually committed the murder in the book.
Yeah.
Like all of my murder mysteries, there is a clue within the book. If you really pay attention, you can unveil who the culprit is.
Wow. I've read some of your books. I loved The Lyme Conspiracy.
Thank you.
And I like the way you write. There's certain writers that I just like. I don't care for so much detail. There was a chair in the room and a vase on the refrigerator and a this and there, and I don't care. Get to the story, you know.
Right.
Oh my God. So and long chapters.
Right.
You know, I like them short. I mean, I just like your style. So I enjoy your books. I really do.
As being a police officer, your style of investigating. When you wrote this last book, a lot of investigating you did some study up on the true part of the story where it would interweave into your novel?
I didn't really know that much about the investigation of the actual crime itself. I was not involved in that, so I didn't know. But I have used my experiences as a police officer to be creative throughout the investigative processes within my books, to create some twists and turns, and I try to stay true to some of the forensics and some of the investigative techniques that are used today.
Right, interesting.
Well, before we get into how this helps healing, why don't you tell us a little bit about your books, discuss them, and tell us what inspired you to write each book.
Well, this is the one we were just talking about.
Yeah.
This is the most recent, and it's Bottle Park. What inspired me to write this book was the sad case of this boy's family never, learning who, finding out there's no justice for their son's murder. So that kind of inspired me to write this, along with a couple other characters that I had grown up with, that are really the two other characters in the book, similar. Their personalities, they were kind of like the neighborhood troublemakers. That kind of inspired me to write this book, and I like to write books, with whodunits, twists and turns.
Yeah.
Thought-provoking.
Right.
The main character in this book is a homicide detective. His name is Jake Waterfield. He's an African-American character with a lot of integrity, straight and narrow, and I really like his personality and character in the story. And he partners up with another character, Randy Appleby, and they at first they're like gasoline and fire, but after a while they start to click, and they actually become friends. So it's also how relationships can evolve throughout a process.
That's good. Hold it up for 1 second. Let them see the cover. Oh, get back on the close-up. Yeah. There you go. That's what it looks like, folks. Okay. Very good. Let's see the next one.
So that's Bottle Park. The book before that was The Lime Conspiracy.
Yeah.
Which we had covered in
the last show you did with us.
In the last show we did a few years ago.
I remember that.
So what inspired me to write The Lyme Conspiracy was I got Lyme disease. And I started writing Bottle Park, but when I came down with Lyme disease, I felt compelled to put that one aside and start writing this book. And it's actually the thinnest book out of all of them. It's 220 pages. 220 pages. So I put that one down. I started writing this one because I really got into having Lyme disease and having chronic Lyme disease. I really wanted to do a lot of research about the disease and really, inform the public about a lot of things they don't understand about this disease. And one of them being that people die from Lyme disease.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize it. They think that it's just something that comes and goes, or you take 10 days antibiotics and you're fine, and that is not the case. Once this spirochete gets into your body, and it hides. It's like the spirochete. It's like they're like long worms, and they go into cavities. And they'll hide. They'll hide from your immune system. They'll hide from the antibiotic. And once it's gone and they feel secure, they come back out and they multiply.
Wow.
It's a smart disease.
Smart, yeah. It's a disease that can think.
It is, and it actually knows where to attack. A lot of times it'll go to people's knees and it'll go to people's joints because that's where they have their arthritis, their stress. And mine was my right wrist, which I had broken years ago, and I had surgery on it. And when I got Lyme disease, it went right for that wrist, and it ached. I couldn't even pick up a glass of water, along with many other symptoms.
Right.
So I ended up writing this book. I wanted to get it out there. In the back of it, there's testimonials from Lyme patients, and it's now being read all over the world.
Yes, I had some of my viewers call me to get in touch with you because you had said that you could tell them where they can get the best help for the disease, where they can get the best antibiotics and so forth. So you were very helpful. The audience really loved it,
Thank you.
And I, for one, could not put that book down. I was picking it up every minute I had free time. It was really, it's what they call a page turner.
Yeah.
Really good.
The character in this book is a female. I try to have different characters in each one of my novels. Bottle Park is an African-American police officer, detective. In this book, she's a state police detective. It's a female. Her name is Taylor Marshall. And she's kind of in an all-boys club at work trying to prove herself. But she's actually very bright, and she's tough. And she ends up, it's basically about Plum Island, where the Animal Disease Center is, and how Lyme disease possibly had come from Plum Island. It's 10 miles from the shore of Old Lyme, Connecticut, to Plum Island. And they were experimenting with Borrelia burgdorferi, which is the scientific name for Lyme disease. After the Second World War, they were using it, experimenting as a biological warfare agent.
Yes.
And so I connected that. So when these scientists started getting murdered, she picks up the case. And there's an assassin who's an ex-Navy SEAL who's committing the murders. And I'm not going to go too deep into the story because I don't want to ruin it for any of the possible readers out there. But again, twists and turns. And
it's enlightening, too, about Lyme disease, the start, what happened, things like that. It gives good food for thought.
Yes, there's quite a bit of information that people don't understand about the disease itself as well. So I wanted to, coordinate that into the story.
Okay, but it also kind of weaves into real life because Lyme disease, as we know, is controversial. Was it a government-made disease? Plum Island, and then you put it in a book. So it excites you. It really excites you. Gets the audience.
Really good, really, really good book.
So,
Okay.
And as you, as an author, running stuff like this, going through the disease itself and writing a book that's a home run for you and for many others, I guess in a sense of healing, Joseph? What do you think?
Healing for
you?
me?
Yeah. Oh, besides accomplishment, do you feel like you've got a message out there, even though it's a novel, but you know, it's that conspiracy thing. It's true to life. Give me your thoughts.
It is healing. I think writing in general is healing. You know, can be healing.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people write letters that they never intend to send?
True.
Just
Yeah. Therapy, like, yeah.
it's therapeutic to be able to get, you know, those feelings that you have inside out, to let them out. Some people hold everything inside, and that in itself is self-destructive. You have to get that out. Some people go to therapists. Some people don't want to do that. They write.
Right.
So, you know, I encourage people to do that.
Maybe novels are born that way. People not knowing that they could write, they all of a sudden they look, wow, this is not too bad, you know? So yeah, it's therapeutic and healing, and that's great.
You know, so many times I've heard from people also, you know, boy, I wish I could write a book. You know, I'm going to write that book. And they never write that book. Like you said, letters never to be sent. But they've got so much to say, but they don't know how to say it. Or
Yeah,
they're going to say, you
that's
know,
true.
How do you do it? How do you?
Yeah, that's the thing. Getting it out of the head, down the arm, and onto the paper.
Yeah.
Well, you know, going back to what you said before that, I'll answer that. Some of the best artists, whether they're novelists, painters, musicians, have had some severe struggles in their lives that really help them to excel as artists. And I think some of the best authors have gone through some struggles themselves. You know, I mean, everyone goes through struggles. Some people handle it differently than others. Some put it out in their art. And so I think that's a big part of people who really are really good at their craft. You know, they may have some internal strife that they put out onto their canvas or into their lyrics or to the pages. So myself, and anyone who wants to write a book out there, you can do it. You can write a book. What you have to do is you have to commit a certain time every day to write. Because what happens is people will write and then they'll get caught up in everyday life. They'll put the book in the drawer, the manuscript in the drawer. It sits there and they say, I'm going to get back to it, you know, next month. Next month becomes next year. And then before you know it, it's never finished. So what I do is when I have a story in my head, I do an outline first. That way I know how I do a detailed outline. All right, so I know, you know, what the premise of the story is going to be from the beginning to the end. And I have it outlined. And I follow my outline as I'm writing the story. However, I make changes as I go.
Yeah.
Because different ideas come to you as you go.
That's the exciting part, I find, in writing.
Absolutely.
Where you have that basic backbone structure you have, and then all of a sudden you write a sentence, and somehow it opens up another gate, and it's like, ooh, and it can actually turn the whole story around.
Exactly.
You know?
It's very thought-provoking, and you can, you know, as you get caught up in that, you're mesmerized in writing this book, other things will come to you that make more sense, or other twists and turns that make it more exciting. So I do my outline, I follow the outline, but I make changes as I go. But what I do is every morning with my cup of coffee, I spend an hour and a half writing. And I do it every morning. And if you can do a page a day,
There you go.
in a year you have a novel, you have your first draft.
All right.
It's not that hard, you just have to be committed to do it, even if you did 1 hour a day.
Do you have to sometimes make yourself do that? I mean, like, I'll be in bed now. I'm an artist. I do a lot of that. And I'll say, I'm going to get up tomorrow and I'm going to do this. In the morning I'm in bed, I'm going to do this. And then I get up and start doing the routine. And then all of a sudden I don't do it. And I'm going, you know, that happens. So does that ever happen to you? Or how do you make yourself do it?
The dreaded, I want to add to that, the dreaded 2 words that we all have to say, writer's block.
Oh, yeah.
Which terrifies all of us.
I got to tell you, Jimmy, that I've been really fortunate in that I have not really had writer's block that often. I keep my mind open. For me, the best time to write is first thing in the morning.
Yeah, that's when I'm better in the morning. Yeah.
I wake up in the morning, I have my coffee, I sit down and I write. If I had to do it at 8 o'clock at night, it would never get done because
Yeah.
I'd be too tired. So my mind is clear, I have more energy, and it's quiet in my house. I sit down and I write. And I really haven't, I mean, sure, I've had writer's block for a day or two, or I've had, there've been days when if something happened, I couldn't write. But for the most part, every day I write. And like I said, knock on wood, I haven't had a lot of issues around writer's block.
That's good.
You know what I firmly believe that does help writers, and it's in your bio, that you studied martial arts, which is also a form of concentrated meditation. And I think, as a writer myself, and the three of us here, some form of meditation really helps excel and to clear the way to write that story.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. And I'm a firm believer in meditation.
Oh, you do meditate?
Yes,
Oh.
I do what's called Qi.
Uh-huh.
And it's different than your typical meditation. It's more about finding your center, breathing, and it's based on Chinese martial arts, Kung Fu,
Yeah.
and martial arts like that. And I've been doing the martial arts since I was 12 years old. And that also helped me get through my divorce. I was training at this Kung Fu school in Massachusetts, and beautiful school, the real deal. And there was a rock outside in the back. In the summertime, I'd be out meditating in my rock. And that also helped me get through. So meditation is definitely a good way to clear your mind and soul. And it just helps you in everyday life, helps your sleeping. I can't say enough about meditation. I still do it today.
You really create, I mean, just to be a writer, you create a peaceful space. And that is the fuel to the vehicle that makes you write, that helps you write. I firmly believe that.
I find that most of our guests that come on tell us that they meditate.
Yeah.
That are in some kind of something to do with what we healing outside the box or whatever is what our show has to do with. A lot of them, most all of them, say they meditate.
I have to
So-
give my wife Yvonne a lot of credit in that aspect because she's really big into meditation. And sometimes I'm like, I'm too tired to meditate, and she drags me in and lights the candle. And
Oh, that's
Does she do
nice.
TM, or is it just another form?
she does TM.
Yeah. Transcendental meditation.
Right.
For the guests who don't know,
yeah.
right?
She does TM, and I do my Qi. And
Yeah.
but
However you do it, whatever it is, if it gets it done, that works. That's for you.
absolutely,
Nobody's to say we gotta do it this way or do it that way. Whatever works for you.
that's true.
Yeah, I have a different kind of meditation I do too, and I'm sure you do.
Yep.
So
Well, I TM.
in general, mine is a little
My
different.
sister taught me. My sister's a teacher, a TM teacher. But after 151 shows of all the guests that you've had here, Rosemary, you just pretty much nailed it on the head. I mean, the guests that you have who have gotten this spiritual awareness of healing and healing outside the box do some form of meditation. Where
They
we
do.
all, I think the consensus is here is like, this is where we all really need to go in this universe
Right.
and in this world, to really be aware and open.
That's right. That's right. If you're gonna be creative, in any kind, in any way, I think that helps so much.
Absolutely.
So.
Well, thank you, Rosemary, for doing this show.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yes.
A lot of people thank you for this, so
Aw.
we're just going to say that publicly right now, Great job.
Oh, thank you.
Kudos to you,
Thank you.
Rosemary.
All right. Okay. Next book.
So the next book was my second novel I wrote, and actually this is my favorite. My wife's would be Bottle Park, the newest one, and the first one she likes too. But this book is completely
Different.
Ticket to Paradise.
Ticket to Paradise is completely all from, it's creative. There's nothing to do with anything in real life. The characters are totally fictional. I made them up in my head. This is an interesting story. It takes place in Rhode Island. It's about two brothers of Italian descent. Their father has a connection to the patriarcha family, but he never was a made member, but he's connected to some of those gentlemen out there in Rhode Island. One of the brothers is is kind of a ruffian, tough, doing some drugs and drinking a lot. And the younger brother is a good kid. Basically, you know, it's his only brother. So one night after they're out bowling and having a few beers, they buy a lottery ticket. They pitch in and get a lottery ticket, and it turns out they win $9 million. Well, the good brother ends up with his head bashed in dead, floating in the marina, and the brother that's kind of the black sheep of the family ends up with the money. So that's how the story starts off. And again, twists and turns, who done it. The father actually starts to believe that his son, older son, killed his younger son, his pride and joy over the ticket. Now it goes into a lot of things like, how does somebody who's basically lower middle class, druggy, drunk, scrapper, always getting in fights, when he gets $9 million, what does he do? Well, he quits his job. He goes into that whole thing, ends up beating up his boss, and he goes out and spends money foolishly on cars and boats, and people don't realize that if you do that, when you get a lot of money at once, you can end up broke pretty quick.
Yeah.
And so it goes into that whole thing, and then the investigation, the character, Detective Cara, is also Italian, and he's investigating the murder, and him and his partner. And basically, there's a Hell's Angel suspect that they think might have committed the murder. He is a murderer, and there's more than one murders, and my books usually have 2 or 3 murders in them, like this one. This Hell's Angel's character is one of the suspects, as well as the brother, and again, twists and turns, and the ending, you never know if it's either them or somebody completely different.
Okay, so get that book and find out.
Yeah, that's pretty much the premise of this
You left
book.
us right on the cliff.
Yes.
All right.
You know, I met you when you were writing that book.
Okay.
You had just finished that book. And when you wrote that book, you were in a different state of mind. And I think the reason why was because you were just finishing, you were working on your house. I think you were doing a job change. I'm throwing this out to you. Because now, I remember when you were writing Lime Conspiracy, I mean, where you were there. So your mood, you're an artist. Your mood, your attitude affects what you create, what picture you you paint, which is great, the diversity that you have.
That's true. I think different times in your life, you're going to write differently. When you're younger, you might write something a little bit more adventurous. As I grow a little older, it might have a little bit less adventure and more depth. And as you're going through a specific time in your life, a certain time period is going to reflect how you write and what your story is going to be about. That's true.
Yeah, it is. And your last book there, or what's that? When was that?
This was my first book.
First book.
This is the one that I started writing when I was going through my divorce so many years ago. I am now happily remarried, I will add. It was actually a blessing in disguise.
Yes,
Right.
that's what usually happens.
Yeah.
I have a wonderful wife, and she's very supportive of my writing. The last season.
Okay.
The last season is actually the most spiritual out of all of my books. And Rose, I think you would like this one. I'll have to get you a copy.
Okay.
This book is basically about good and evil, and the good and evil being the Antichrist and the return of Christ.
Oh, I would like it.
The book is about the return of Christ. No one really knows he's Christ, especially throughout the beginning and middle of the book. But it's about terrorism. There's an FBI agent that is hunting down terrorists, and I'm not going to tell you, who the culprits are and who the Antichrist is in the book. You have to read it to find out.
That sounds interesting. Yeah.
But it's really a battle of good and evil, and that's why on the cover, I know it's kind of hard to see, but there's a dagger with snake heads coming off it, and then the hands of God. So you have the evil and the good here.
Point your book this way. This way, right, yep, just like that. It's tough to see.
Yeah, it's tough to see because it's white.
There, that's better, yeah.
But you have the good and the evil here. But a lot of people that read all of my books had said this was their favorite. It's really about, if Christ did return, what would he do today? You know, with the media the way it is today.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a current issue right now that we're all dealing
Yes,
with. Yeah.
yes. I've had the discussion with a group recently.
Oh, okay.
What would it be like? You know, they'd probably say, wow, that's really good effects they do there. You know, how do they work that? You know, not, you know, right? You wouldn't believe. It would be really hard
Yeah.
for him to come that way.
And how would he be accepted by the Catholic Church? You know.
Oh, yeah, again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I mean.
We don't want to go through this again, right?
Exactly. You know, you'd have to
Used to-
catch those miracles like on film. You know, even then people wouldn't believe it.
No, you're right. They
but
wouldn't. It would be harder today.
Yes, but his character, obviously, he's all love in the book, and he does perform some really interesting miracles in this book, as the Antichrist is committing some atrocities. So in the end, you know, you'll have to read it to find out who prevails, but this is
Sounds very interesting.
interesting
yeah,
book. Yes.
For me.
Wow, man, that's something, because you write a book like that during your time of your divorce, and all that emotion that's going through you, and you're fighting good and evil. I mean, you're trying to find that. You're trying to find that happy space. You're trying to find that happy spot, man, because it's really not going so well for you, Joseph. Right? It really isn't.
At that time, yeah.
Yeah, you're all by yourself, and why is this happening to me? As we know, everything happens for a reason, and here you are today with 4 books, a beautiful, you know, wife, a beautiful home. We have to go that route, I guess, right?
And 3 great kids.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very
Great.
nice. All right, so okay, you had some questions I wanted to ask you, but seems like you've addressed them
He did.
already.
Yeah, he did.
So okay, are you working on anything right now?
I have outlined my newest novel called Lions and Men, which I'll be penning probably after the holidays. I took a little bit of hiatus and actually took up music.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
ooh, what kind of music? How's that?
Jimmy's a friend of mine. He comes over to my house occasionally, so
Yeah.
and he's a musician, a singer himself. When I turned 55, I said there's 2 things I always wanted to do, and I'm going to do it. And that was a year ago. I want to climb Mount Washington to the summit and down,
Really?
and I did that, and it was not easy. But I summited the Mount Washington, and I wanted to take guitar lessons, and I went out and bought a guitar, and I've been taking lessons for over a year, and I play and I sing, and I'm really into that, so I've been doing that. Took a little break from writing, but I'm soon to jump back into to writing this book.
He sings? What do you think? Does he sing?
Hey, he's not bad. No, it really isn't that bad. I mean, he's been upstairs, you know, he's got it out, and he plays pretty damn good, I've got to tell you. You know?
Nah, I'm a beginner. It's only been about a year.
Yeah, but, you know, he's not bad. He really isn't. He's not bad.
That's
not bad
good.
at all.
That's good.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, he's a gentleman. If I can testify, he's a man who's really created his space, you know, and he makes the universe work for him, and in a great way, you know. And it's funny how, you know, you learn about people just by like listening and observing and watching, you know. You know, Joseph's a great guy.
Thanks,
And
Jim.
I'm amazed at what kind of the productivity that you have, because you know, you don't see that in everybody, you know, or in the people that you meet. You really don't know what's going on in their head, you know. And for you, for writing right now, what a tremendous release, you know. And we're so caught up in this this age of just people are now having neck problems because all they do is look at their phone. It was on the news today.
Oh, yeah,
And that was
really?
getting posture problems, you know.
I have friends that play video games, and my son does it, my older son, and I just won't do that. I mean, I would prefer, we're only here for a short time. And in that time, I want to be able to do as much as I can creatively before I go to the other side. And, you know, I mean, my hope is one day, 200 years from now, my great-great-great-grandkid will pick up one of my books and blow the dust off it and start turning pages and realize and start having an understanding of who I was.
Right.
Because I'm in every character, in every one of my books is me.
Ah.
Even the female characters, it's all part of me.
Oh.
And, you know, my thoughts, you know, my dreams, my hopes, my pain, it's all in those pages.
Wow.
Mm.
That's
And-
interesting.
Yeah, so this
Good to know.
new book, Lions and Men, is probably going to be my longest. It might. Most of my books take about 3 years for me to write, from beginning to end. This one's probably going to be 5 years. This is a story about a kid in California who gets drafted into the Vietnam War in the mid '60s, and his father, who was in the war himself. The Second World War does not want his son to go in this war because he doesn't believe in it, which today a lot of people don't believe in Vietnam now that we've uncovered, you know, what it was really about. So basically his father helps him escape the draft and go to Mexico to meet up with a friend of his he was in the Second World War with. And of course the government's chasing him. He goes down, he gets caught up in with some very bad characters. His father's friend turned out to be a criminal. So he gets caught up in a criminal enterprise where they're doing sexual slavery and drugs and things like that in Mexico. And he doesn't really, the son doesn't want any part of that. He ends up in a battle down there. He falls in love with a prostitute. In the meantime, he ends up escaping with the prostitute, and he's being chased by this criminal cartel and the government. So it's really a race to get out of Mexico alive. So, and it's really, the story, premise of the story is really about the relationship between the father and the son. From the beginning, they were always butting heads, and how this whole thing pulls them together. So it's a relationship story, which is very personal for me and my dad. And that's really the reason why I'm writing this book, was about the volatile relationship I had with my father. And in the end, we kind of pulled it together just before he passed away.
You know, Joe, you served in the U.S. forces. You're a police officer, firefighter. Did you ever
I was never a firefighter.
Okay. All right.
I was a police officer.
All right, police officer. Was there any point at that time when you were doing that, when you were doing these services, that you thought you would ever be a writer?
Yes, when I was a police officer, I was going to college nights, and at Westfield State College, and I took a poetry course, and I've written poems. They're on my website as well. But I was taking a poetry course, and my instructor pulled me aside and he said, "You have a real knack for writing," and he goes, "I encourage you not to give this up." He goes, "You have a gift."
He knew from the poems you wrote?
From my poems that I was writing
Really?
during my course. We all had to write poems from scratch, and then we all read them to each other, and my poems were really well received. And then, of course, I got an A, which was good, because I didn't get an A in math. So it offset my my GPA a little bit. So and in high school, I used to do a little bit of writing. So I always liked writing. And I had this story from my first book in my head when I was a police officer. It wasn't until my wife left me, actually, with my kids and took them away with her high school sweetheart.
Stripped you with everything.
She
Stripped you
just
from everything.
stripped me and left me alone, so I was alone with my thoughts. And I said, I can sit here with a bottle of Jack Daniels, right? Or I can put the Jack Daniels away and I can pick up the typewriter. And I chose the latter, so I mean the typewriter. So everything's history.
Right.
How did the ideas come to you for books? I mean, is it like, all right, this is a two-part question. First of all, let's say, how do the ideas come to you? What do you think happens in a person's mind to get those, like your mind, that you know you're going to do this or that or the other? What happens?
I can't speak for any other writers.
Right.
I think everyone's different.
Right.
For me, it comes from up there.
Yeah.
God, a higher power, the clouds, I don't know. I just get the ideas. I've had stories in my head, and I've had a dream about the story, and I woke up and I grabbed my tape recorder or a pad and pen, and I jotted that down right on the spot. I incorporated that into my story, but it just comes to me. It's like I feel blessed that I'm able to have stories that I'm told are page turners, that keep people enthralled from the beginning to the end. I like to write how I like to read. Like you. There's authors out there that can spend a half a chapter describing this room.
I
Right.
know.
All right. Now that's great if you're having trouble sleeping, if you're having insomnia. Personally, I like a story to keep moving. I don't need to know how many flowers are in the vase. All right. I can, if you say there's flowers, I can use my imagination to determine where the flowers are in the room.
Right.
If everything is spelled out for you as a reader, you're not using your imagination.
Correct.
And that's why I like to go with the Hemingway type of writing, where it doesn't go into a lot of detail, lets the reader use their imagination as the writer does.
Right.
And if I remember correctly, there's not a lot of writers go for shock value. Lots of gore, descriptive, really heavy gore, and lots of descriptive, really, what can I say, breathtaking sex, which I don't really care either. And your books have it just right. You need a little, and I think that you just do it right, just enough.
I think
taste.
Yes, I think you have to. I mean, you have to be realistic.
Yeah.
If you're dealing with mafiosos, right? La Cosa Nostra characters, they're not going to be talking like, "Gosh darn it," all right?
No,
all right.
no,
They're going
no.
to drop f-bombs, and they're going to. So you have to be a little bit true to the character, without going overboard.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the gore, I mean, Ticket to Paradise probably has the most violence in it. Again, that's with the mobsters.
Right.
And I try not to go too much into detail and the blood and the guts, but let the reader understand what's happening.
Right.
So it puts a chill down your spine. When it comes to the sex, I have sex, but I also have a romance.
Yeah, you do. I remember in Lime Conspiracy. Yeah.
And there's
nice.
a fine line between, going over that line. Is it too graphic sexually? Yet, you want to have the romance in there, especially for our female readers.
Yeah, I know women do.
The women, they love the romance. And so I think it's just a matter of just, using your common sense.
Yeah, it is true.
Can I ask you from writer to writer, because I think we're going to be different on this. On this, do you find tranquility as you write the book? Now that may be a very wide question, because I'll tell you personally, I do not have any tranquility when I write. I think it's because, and maybe other writers feel the same way, I'm just too active. I mean, you have your own method. You can get up in the morning and do it. If I'm thinking of a thought and I'm thinking of something, damn it, Joe, if it doesn't hit me at 3 o'clock in the morning, I got to get up and I'm on the computer or I'm writing it down. It's just, in that whole process of that time. Enjoyable, though, and exciting, but I am never at peace.
Yeah.
I'm just not at peace when I do it, It's
I'm
not a bad thing.
Yeah. And everyone's different. I'm the opposite of that. When I'm caught up in my story, I'm in a trance. I am absorbed into my story. So it's almost like a state of meditation for me.
Right.
I am just writing and I'm just going. My first draft is a rough draft. That's written when I write, my first draft is from the heart. My second, third, and sometimes fourth draft is from maybe the second a little bit from the heart, but as you go on, it's from the mind, the brain. From the heart is the best draft. It's more exciting. You're caught up in the story. You're excited to get these words on paper. Like I said, when you write the end on that first draft, I popped the champagne and the cigar, and it might have taken me, a year and a half to do that first draft, depending on the book. But For me, I can get caught up in the story, and it's actually a good time for me.
See, in your writing, from what I'm hearing from you, which I think a lot more people need to do, is you're in touch with your soul, is what I hear from you. You're really in touch with your soul. And all the lessons that you've learned and everything that you've experienced, you have the opportunity and you have this gift that you've developed, or you've always had it, to explore and to put something out, and you have 4 books. There are so many people out there now that I know, and myself at times, where you miss that mark. And you forget where you came from, and you forget what the purpose why you're here. Because we're just so caught up, and like you said, you got to take time away from that day-to-day life, you know? Because when you do that, when you really begin to focus in and find that peace of mind in one's center, how much more you create and how much more you give back to everyone else besides yourself, you know? And I see a lot of that. Everyone is just too stressed out. I watch way too much news as far as I'm concerned. I don't even need to watch it, you know? I just can hear it from somebody else. Because getting the news from me first thing in the morning is just a bad thing. I'm sorry.
Bad way to start your day, yeah.
If you're going to show me puppies in the snow, I got it. Other than that, really, okay, I got to know what the weather is, I'm fine. But, oh man, you know,
Well,
it's
that's
tough.
It's advice to give to people.
Yeah.
They don't need to start their day off like that.
Right.
I know some people, first thing get up, the TV goes on. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's why a lot of people that enjoy reading novels like to crack open a novel and read it, because it actually helps them to forget about the world around us, escape from all the
Yes.
all the turmoil and misery that's going on in the world, the wars and everything else, and they can escape. And
I've heard you say a few things spiritual tonight. May I ask you, kind of just a little bit, what you believe about like an afterlife or a reincarnation, or what it's like, or I don't know. It doesn't matter what it is. It's all good. But I just was curious. Someone like yourself.
I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian.
Which means you believe in Christ.
I believe in Christ.
Yep.
I was raised Catholic.
Yeah.
I had drifted away from the Catholic Church for a while. Now I'm back because it's more about I really like the priest. He's a good human being and has a great heart, and that sold me on going to this particular church. So, you know, we do go to church, not every Sunday, but we go regularly. The afterlife, I really wasn't sure how I felt about that. I recently went to a medium who knew nothing about me, had never met me. All she knew was my first name. But I had heard through the grapevine, she worked in the school system where my wife works in New Haven, that she was the real deal. And I said, I got to see for myself.
Right.
And I sat down with her for an hour, and I'm a firm believer right now.
Oh.
And people might not believe in that, but I do now. You know, she was able, both my parents are deceased, and it was amazing. She knew things about me she couldn't possibly have known. She knew I was a police officer. She knew my nickname that my mother used to call me. My name's Joseph. That's all she had. My nickname was Jay. She knew, it goes on and on and on. She connected with my mother. And so after that meeting, after I had a couple drinks, I kind of realized, because I was really shaken up by that. And I believe that there is, when we leave here, our soul goes on to another place. And I believe if you're a good human being here, depends on where you sit in that other place. But when you believe that, I don't think you fear death as much.
That's right.
And I don't.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I'm sure you're open-minded as to what the future may bring for you in that area too. And your first book said a little bit about that.
Yes.
And who knows what's going to come in the future, Yes, I think that you said your ideas come from above, and I think that there are souls over there who help people to write, who help give ideas and so forth and so on like that, So I think that's a good thing with writers. I'm trying to actually get from you information to tell our viewers about who are toying with the idea of writing, who have these problems, and like you said, write them down, and then maybe their imagination could take. Yeah, what do you think about imagination? Is an important thing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Because
Oh,
I've
yeah,
done
absolutely.
therapy with people, spiritual therapy, and I find that a lot of people don't have any imagination. I thought everyone did, and I was surprised. But that's an important thing, right? And let it go free, right? Let it. What do you say? What do you say?
I think what's important is you have to have time to yourself, alone, quiet time, in order
Yeah.
to open up those cells to bring that your imagination, to bring those thoughts into your brain. People who are caught up in everyday life and they're running 100 miles an hour, they don't really have the ability to get that place of serenity where they can use their imagination to be creative enough to write something that's made of fiction. Nonfiction is a different story. But I spend a lot of time alone, whether it's out on the lake or, if I'm walking through the woods, whatever it might be, to be able to open my mind up and let the universe bring these thoughts into my head. So I think that you have to spend time alone. Spending time with your own thoughts is good because it helps you not only in the creative sense, but it helps you contemplate your life, where you are now, and how you can be better and move things forward in a positive way.
That's good. Yeah, it's true. We really do need to be alone and walking in nature and drinking it in. I always say, if you're going to walk alone. Don't walk with someone because chances are you're going to start talking and you're going to miss everything that's all around you. You're not going to see what you went there to see. You're not going to get the peace because you'll start talking about everything in the world and da-da-da. So that it is so important. You're right. Meditate. Walk in the woods. Go on the lake. Everything like you said. So that's good advice for the people to do, right?
Yeah, and people who are going through, we all go through struggles in life. Lord knows I've been through mine, and I'm sure you have too. People who have a lot of inner turmoil, letting it out through the art of writing is one of the good ways to really get that out. Whether it's letters to people that you've wronged or have wronged you, or forgiveness. You have to be able to forgive. If you don't forgive and you hold that stuff inside, it's going to eat you up alive, and it's not doing anybody any good.
And it's going to tie you to the person you're not forgiving, isn't it? You're going to carry them with you everywhere.
Right. And sometimes just being able to get your mind off your problems and write a short story, write a poem, it's all good. And there's nothing that can be come out poorly about writing, fiction.
Right. It's funny. You could almost say, if you wanted to put it in some kind of imagery or a TV show, okay, like you got Star Trek, or you got a boat, or you're watching a movie, and then you're on a ship, and it takes a hit, there's an explosion, and the first thing they say is, assess the damages. Assess the damages in your life. You, Joe, when you came to that crossroads, you're now by yourself in the kitchen, like you said. You can either drink it away, feel sorry for yourself, or you can somehow make this productive and uplifting and healing.
Yeah.
Where some people, can't do that. There are some people, like you said, Rosemary, don't know how to express a feeling because they've lived their life like that for so long. Does my opinion really matter? Of course your opinion matters. I mean, they can't see that. They can't see that outside. Joe, you said this to me 4 years ago. I'll never forget it. Now, I was in a place where I was doing some carpentry work, and I was like, well, I really don't know. I don't know. And you came and gave me this verbal slap on the side of the head. He goes, what's wrong with you? Look at you. You can create. Look at you. You can build a shelf. I can't build a shelf. I'd nail my thumb to the wall. And he's telling me all this stuff.
Right.
And people don't see the good qualities in other
Everyone
people.
has
I guess.
something. Yes,
they
do.
It's
yeah,
true.
That's right.
Everybody's got something to give. That's why you're here.
And here you are, a married man with a wonderful wife that you're really in love with, your children, beautiful children, and yet you still find time to spend by yourself. You know, and people don't have to be married and be on top of each other all the time, or
Right.
doing something all the time, or watching TV, or their, what do you call it, iPhones? I don't even know what they call them now these days. iPhone, iPad,
Smartphones, yeah.
smartphone, whatever. Constantly, constantly, constantly. I think it's like the lower powers' way of keeping us busy, so we won't think about life and death and spirituality and friendship and all the good stuff. You know, it's really sad. So, yeah. So that's why writing is such an excellent thing. Like you said, you know, we've got about a minute and a half or so. Is there any last words you'd like to leave with our audience? I don't want to put you on a spot or anything.
Last words. Just find time to do what you love to do in life, and don't sweat the small stuff. And try to spend some time alone to assess your life and have goals. When you have goals in life, it gives your life meaning. Even if they're small goals, you attain them, you know, one step at a time, and before you know it, you've really achieved big goals. And when you do that, it makes you feel really good inside and self-confident, and it helps you to forget about, you know, some of the bad things that are going on in your life, you know, which most people have, the struggles. But try not to be complacent and sit in front of the television too much and play the video games.
Right.
Right. And
Thank you for being so inspirational, Joe. And being a friend. It's great to have you on the show.
You're welcome.
man.
It's my pleasure. Thank
Yeah.
you for having
And
me.
like he said to you, everyone has a talent. You just need to tap into it.
Absolutely.
And sometimes you need that time alone, that downtime, to meditate on it, to think about it, and you'll find we all have a talent. Every single person, I don't care what it is, we all have a talent. And I say the same thing. Thank you. It was wonderful to have you
You're
again.
welcome. Thanks for having me. I
And,
appreciate it.
We're going to enjoy your
Jimmy.
books, and the audience will enjoy your books. And we're going to
Yeah.
give you give the information now. To contact Joseph Bradley, the phone number is 860-287-4283. His email is josephbradley58@gmail.com, and his website is www.josephjbradley.com. And to learn more information about this show or any of our past shows, please contact us at healoutsidethebox@yahoo.com. Or to reach me, Rosemary Lachance, the phone number is 203-627-7966, and my website is www.rosemarylachance.com.
Or Jim Driscoll, which is me, and my email address is driscoll.jimmy@gmail.com.
And we are also on Facebook under Healing Outside the Box. Please like us there. And tonight's quote is, as each one begins to understand that the golden rule does truly enact itself, they become more mindful of what they are doing and saying and thinking, for they understand that although God loves them without condition, their own actions will bounce back at them in the earthly dream. Okay, thank you for joining us tonight.
Good show. Really good show.
Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Feel your thirst beside the river. Wash the journey from your hands. Feel the comfort flow inside you. Come this far, you understand. Fear's not allowed, where dreams can be lost or found. As you look out through the window,